So getting into the tactics for better sleep. Fresh sunlight during the day. Number 2, dark room. So this is another thing too, and this is actually kind of a fascinating thing. I always get somebody in every group that I talk to about this, are like, yeah, but our hunters and gatherers slept outside and they had light from the sun, the moon. It's totally different than the artificial light that we get in our house. If you're living in an environment where all you're getting is moonlight or stars, keep your windows open. Not a problem. But 99.9% of us are getting light pollution from something. There's street lamps, there's cars driving by, there's artificial light in our rooms, there's alarm clocks with lights on them, there's phones with lights going off. We have all these little things around. There's your doors open and your refrigerator light, the sense, all that stuff is going. So you want to make your room ideally to sleep pitch black, blackout curtains, unplug your alarm clocks, or if you have an alarm clock that you need, put something over it so it blocks the light completely if you just need the noise. Put your phones on airplane mode or keep them out of the room, but turn them off, nothing on. You want it pitch black in the room. Again, the argument that I get with this a lot is some people are like, yeah, but this doesn't affect me. I can still sleep through it. Just because you think you're sleeping through it does not mean you're getting restful sleep. Like you guys have heard people that snore. That's a sign of sleep apnea. And if you're having sleep apnea and you do a study, you'll show that you're depriving your body of oxygen and you're not getting the sleep that you should be getting. But a lot of people that snore are like, no, I'm fine. I feel fine. I have enough energy. But you want to be careful because it could be better. And if it's an easy fix, just make the room dark. Any questions about that one? Making sure the room is quiet. So some of us, we lived in cities for a while, like apartments in cities, and it was noisy. And so we had to figure out things to try to make the room quiet, but it affected my sleep dramatically. So what we did was I slept with earplugs. We kept the fan on, the bathroom fan. We kept that on to create white noise. So that way, if cars drove by or a motorcycle, it would drown that out as much as possible. And so if you're in an area where it can't be perfectly quiet, then earplugs, white noise machines can really be helpful. Keeping the room cool. They say 68 to 70 degrees is ideal. You really just don't want to be warm. You can make it colder if you want to.
65.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, the colder the better, as long as you're not waking up in the middle of the night, like just shivering. But in order to get good sleep, your body temperature has to drop. And so if you're too warm, if the room is warm and your body temperature is high, you're not going to be able to drop into those deeper levels of sleep. Keeping the bed for 2 things: sleep and the other S word. And I don't know if kids are going to be watching it, so I'm not going to say it. But you want to keep the room for literally 2 things. So ideally, no TV in the bedroom, nothing. It should be your sanctuary for connecting with your spouse and falling asleep. And anything that distracts you from connecting with your spouse or falling asleep should be left out of the bedroom, because you're training your body to be excited and be more excitatory with certain things. So another thing with having a bedtime routine that down-regulates your body. For some people, it's meditation. Maybe it's gratitude, visualization, reading. Some people with reading, it keeps them awake. When I read in the morning, I'm wide awake. When I read in bed, I usually can't get through 1 page of a book without falling asleep. And Jen likes to laugh on me as the book falls on my face as I'm trying to read. And then I'll pick it up and start reading it again. She's like, just put the book down and go to bed already. But I want to finish. I just got to get through this 1 page. Journaling is another one. Television, not in the bedroom. But if you'd like to unwind, if that's part of your down regulation, unwinding, is watching a little TV at night. The thing is you don't want to be watching a horror movie, hardcore action. You don't want the lights real bright. Wearing blue light blocking glasses, watching a show that is not too stimulatory is fine if that helps you. But you really want to try to avoid the stuff that stimulates you. So if you're finding that you're struggling with your sleep and you're watching a lot of TV at night, that might be something that you want to decrease. I hesitate sharing this with you because it's so ridiculous what I do sometimes to fall asleep, because I don't really, if I'm awake and I find myself like, oh, I'm not really falling asleep, I actually go through my workout from earlier in the day. I'll go through I'll replay the exercises that I did, how many sets that I did, and like what it felt like. And usually by halfway through there, I'm passed out. So that works for me. It might not work for you. Most people don't find reminiscing about their workouts as relaxing, but doing things where visualizing yourself walking through nature, or you're in your happy place or a peaceful environment. Those are important things. Not going through your to-do lists or things that get you all riled up. Planning for the next day. If you're somebody whose brain just goes nonstop, and you're in bed and you're like, my mind is racing, don't fight it. Get up out of bed, go into the kitchen, go into the living room, make sure the lights are dim, and write down what's on your mind, or what's the list of things. Or if you need to send out a few emails and it's going to take 5 minutes, just send them out. Just get it off your mind so you can put your mind at rest and get back to sleep. So alcohol and caffeine rules. So alcohol is a major sleep disruptor. Major sleep disruptor. Alcohol is great for getting you to pass out, but it's kind of like the Ambien. You pass out, but it's a good sedative, but not a good sleep aid. So you want to avoid alcohol at night as much as possible. Ideally, a couple of hours before you go to bed, you want to limit it to 1 or 2 drinks. Ideally, really the best time to drink would be in the morning, because then you let it, there's such a stigma against drinking earlier in the day, but having it, unless it's a mimosa, which is kind of weird. If you saw somebody drinking a whiskey in the morning, you would think that person was an alcoholic. But if they drink 17 mimosas with breakfast, it's like, oh, they're just having a good time. But drinking in the morning, that way the alcohol is out of your system by the time you want to go to bed. So most people are not going to drink in the morning, but it'd be better to have a drink at let's say you get off work, you're home at 6, have a glass of wine at 6 rather than having a glass of wine at 10 if you're going to go to bed at 10:30, to let it work its way out of the system. As far as caffeine has a half-life of 6 to 8 hours. And so you really want to keep this early on in the day. And before I ever started studying this sleep stuff, I'd go out to dinner like an Italian restaurant and get an espresso or a cappuccino after dinner. And then I'm like, wow, why didn't I sleep that well that night? Well, duh. I was loading my body with caffeine right before I went to bed. So you want to keep caffeine early in the day. So ideally, 8 to 10 hours before you go to bed at the latest, but ideally as early as possible. So they say, and I'll admit when I have things good, when I'm doing things well and when I'm not. They say you don't want to have caffeine until about an hour and a half after waking up. And then you want to stop it as early as possible, well before noon. I usually start drinking my coffee about 30 minutes after I wake up. It's way too enjoyable and way too an important part of my morning to wait an hour and a half. I'm drinking it earlier. But if that's the worst thing you're doing, you're probably in decent shape. So keep the caffeine early in the day.